What makes an unforgettable video game moment? Just like film and literature, games have the power to impact us on a profound emotional level. What we tend to remember of a game once the dust has settled are pivotal moments that have etched themselves into our collective memory. We might forget the details, but what stays is a sense of awe, fear, happiness, or sadness. In Moments of Genius, we will explore the techniques behind some of gaming's most memorable and iconic scenes in an attempt to better understand why they left such a tremendous impression on us. Moments of creative genius can be the result of music, writing, incredible technical achievements, or a perfect combination of all these things. Today's moment of genius is the gut-wrenching ending of Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption. Alongside John Marston, we witness the final days of the Wild West, in a narrative that is teasing the fate of its protagonist from the very first scene. Needless to say, spoilers are ahead. In light of Red Dead Redemption 2's imminent release, it may be of some value to remind ourselves why Rockstar's Western epos is widely regarded as a prime example for great storytelling within the video game medium. While the gameplay and graphics are beginning to show their age, the journey of John Marston hasn't lost its appeal even 8 years after the game's initial release. I believe Red Dead's greatest achievement is the strong connection between John Marston as a character and the ever-present motive of the story. In its essence, Red Dead Redemption is a heartfelt farewell to the Wild West, the time of legendary gunslingers, notorious bands of outlaws, and untamed vastness of the American frontier is about to vanish forever. The unrelenting advancement of industrialization has made their existence obsolete. And John Marston is the last victim of this unstoppable process. But it's difficult to appreciate the importance of this moment without the full context. The game keeps hinting at Marston's fate throughout the entire story. Red Dead Redemption's story is incredibly consistent by reminding us of the central conflict time and time again. Sometimes in very subtle ways, and sometimes the characters address the end of the Wild West directly. Whatever the case, the ending isn't just relying on shock value by killing the protagonist. The ending rests on the shoulders of a greatly crafted narrative, meeting its logical conclusion in Marston's death. From the get-go, Red Dead establishes the contradiction between Marston and the world that surrounds him. During the opening cutscene, Marston appears like a stain on a white wall. He simply doesn't belong. Nothing about his appearance is in tune with the environment of Blackwater, the largest and most industrialized city in the game. First, we see a group of people leaving a paddle steamer. They are all dressed in typical early 20th century fashion. Only one person sticks out quite vividly. You guessed it, John Marston. It's our first introduction to the main protagonist, and he immediately feels out of place. As Marston is escorted through the city by two federal government agents, we encounter first production automobiles, modernly dressed citizens, and telephone lines. Blackwater is an obvious symbol for the rapid technological and social changes of the modern age. And Marston enters this world as a prisoner and outsider. After this initial introduction, you begin to lose sight of the actual subject matter of the story. After all, you'll spend most of your time taming horses, riding through the vast prairie, hunting bounties, and earning fame in Mexican standoffs. The entire idea behind Red Dead is to make the lifestyle of a legendary gunslinger playable. You are supposed to get a taste of the Wild West as you know it from famous spaghetti westerns. For that reason, it's easy to forget that Red Dead actually is about the end of the Wild West. But the characters you meet along the way keep reminding you that the days of the Old West are numbered. Landon Ricketts is the ultimate embodiment of the Wild West, a notorious gunslinger inspired by legendary figures like White Earp and Wild Bill Hickok. Just like White Earp, Ricketts gained fame from a major shootout. He survived the infamous Blackwater Massacre of 1899, the exact year Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place. I think it's fair to say that this event will be of pivotal importance for Red Dead 2's story. Anyway, when we encounter the tired and old Ricketts in Red Dead 1, his life has drifted into meaninglessness. That's probably why he states that his name doesn't matter anymore when he first meets John.
Hold on. What's your name?
That doesn't matter anymore. And you?
I never had a name, mister. I was raised in an orphanage.
A real American.
Ricketts is wise enough to realize that he's a relic of the past.
There's no escape. Look at me, I spent 25 years killing men. Look at me now, sitting around here like some low-rent would-be messiah. We're relics.
Before the final encounter with Marston's old gang leader Dutch van der Linde, the conversation between Edgar Ross and Marston makes unmistakably clear that they stand for two completely different worldviews. Ross describes himself as a necessary evil whose sole purpose is to enforce the rules of civilization and to put an end to people like Dutch van der Linde. He even admits that the order he tries to enforce is flawed, but for him it's better than the alternative, namely a world reigned by chaos and vigilante justice.
You see, me and Archer, we're the bad guys. We enforce the rules. Now, while the rules may not be perfect, they're really not so bad.
Exactly. What's the alternative?
Yeah. See, I'll tell you what the alternative is. It's not complicated. It's about one man and his gun versus another man. Sure, civilization may be dull, but the alternative, Mr. Marston, is hell.
During my first playthrough of the game, it was this exact conversation that led me to realize for the first time that all of this has to end in violence. There's no in between. Edgar Ross functions as Marston's main protagonist, not only because he holds his family hostage, but also because he is a representative of the modern age. As an official of the state's law enforcement body, he is the personification of the social changes pushing men like Marston to the brink of extinction. One of the greatest and most significant moments in Red Dead's story has to be the final confrontation between John and Dutch. The last words of Dutch are probably the best way to describe the central conflict of the story. As he finds himself at the edge of a cliff, desperate and exhausted after years on the run, the notorious Dutch van der Linde looks more like a wounded animal than a legend of the Wild West. Pay close attention to the words Dutch uses to describe his position in society. For him, adapting to the new way of life would be like fighting his own nature. He even compares it to a fight against gravity.
We can't always fight nature, John. We can't fight change. We can't fight gravity. We can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight.
Then give up, Dutch.
But I can't give up, neither. I can't fight my own nature. That's a paradox, John. You see?
That's a battle he cannot win. Dutch seems to believe that the outlaw life is part of his DNA. The world around him has changed beyond recognition, yet the Wild West still controls his actions and thoughts. Men like Dutch are the victims of the modernized American lifestyle. Lacking any other options, Dutch finally confronts the inevitable and gives in to the unyielding force of gravity.
Our time is past, John.
Which leads us to the tragic end of Marston himself and the genius conclusion to Red Dead's narrative. John puts up a good fight and manages to get his family out of danger. Now John finds himself in the same situation as Dutch, outgunned and backed into a corner. His death waits behind this door. I like to think John heard Vanderlyn's last words.
Our time is past, John.
Both the player and Marston know that this is the end. John exits the barn with his head held high. Outside, a firing squad awaits him. I often say that small design decisions can have an enormous impact on the player, and this moment is no exception. Surprisingly, the game switches to Deadeye mode and gives you a couple of seconds to take out as many men as you can. Even though we are talking about a matter of seconds, handing the player control gives the impression that maybe there's a way out. Perhaps shooting Edgar Ross first is the solution. There must be something I can do. Of course, almost at the exact same moment you think that, you realize how silly you are for hoping John gets out of this alive. More than 20 guns are pointed directly at him. That's it. And you know it. My point is, giving the player control, if only for a brief time frame, makes the following moment all the more devastating, because for a split second you actually thought there's hope. But of course, this hope dies in a blaze of gunfire. Marston's death marks the end of the Wild West. As the last member of Dutch Vanderlyn's gang, an entire lifestyle vanishes with him. Everything that happened before was preparing us for this moment. The opening cutscene, our conversations with Ricketts and Edgar Ross, and Marston's last confrontation with Dutch all culminate in this moment. At the end of Red Dead, vigilante justice and the lifestyle of the Wild West give way to justice enforced by law, order, social etiquette, and industrialization. John Marston's demise was inevitable. The era he embodies is simply not compatible with the new society. This means, from the very beginning, Marston was doomed to die. And Red Dead keeps hinting at this outcome throughout the story, bringing all to its logical conclusion in this very moment. For that reason, John Marston's last stand is a moment of genius. After 8 years of eager anticipation, Red Dead Redemption 2 is less than a week away. It will be interesting to see if Red Dead 2 can add anything to the end of the Wild West topic that was already so brilliantly explored in its predecessor. It will be no easy task, but I'm confident in Rockstar's writing team. The first Red Dead belongs to my all-time favorite games. Needless to say, you can expect a detailed critique of Red Dead 2, but I don't want to rush out a half-assed review, so it will probably take a while, just so you know. The Wild West is calling, and I'm so fucking ready.
You have to
Love yourself,